Mid-American Conference Volleyball on ESPN. The Western Michigan Broncos taking on the Ball State Cardinals here in Muncie, Indiana. Both teams have been hot at the right time and look to continue. Welcome into the studio here on the University of Ball State. I am LJ Shreve. That is Ryan Stojic. We have the pleasure of breaking down tonight's match and more as we await first serve. Ryan, why were the Cardinals so dominant in match number 1 yesterday?
Well, LJ, they simply played start to finish team volleyball, and that's the key for what's allowed Ball State to be so successful over the last several weeks. It's the fundamentals. It's winning at the service line, winning defensively, being fundamentally sound, players being in the right position. This Ball State team is playing their best volleyball at the right time, and they'll hope to continue that into tonight.
A lot of momentum is on the table for tonight's game as we look towards the postseason. But, Ryan, I want to get your take on this. Since it is senior night, it's a big night for a lot of the Cardinals here, their last home game. What are you expecting from them?
I'm expecting them to come out firing because for these seniors, your last time playing on Worthen Arena hardwood, it's really special. And even though both of these teams, Ball State and Western Michigan, do have spots in the Mid-American Conference tournament locked up, you know that each squad wants to go out in the regular season with a win. And especially for Ball State, you're at home. You want to win it for your seniors, if nothing else.
The Cardinals played one of their best matches of the season last night when sweeping the Broncos. Ryan, now, outside of the seniors, who are we looking for to impact tonight's game?
There's a few people. Last night it was Sophie Ledbetter, a freshman, who had 14 digs. She's really stepped up defensively. And for Ball State, all around it was a team effort. You see on your screen there, the closest set being the third, 25-18. Still, relatively speaking, though, especially in a conference as competitive as the MAC is, not all that close, not allowing Western Michigan to even get to 20. It was absolute team dominance from Ball State. Young players making plays, veteran players making plays. A lot to be excited about if you're a Ball State Cardinal fan.
When you look towards the Broncos, even though they struggled, who did you see as necessarily an impact player on their squad last night?
I think Kiona Salzman was a bright spot for them because she had 9 kills in 1 dig, one of the bright spots for Western Michigan in what was otherwise a pretty disappointing effort for the Broncos.
As you look at last night's stats right here, what stands out to me right away is the Cardinals up 20 on the kills, 50-30. That really just jumps off the screen to me, Ryan.
It does, and also look at the difference in hitting percentage. That 4.23 rate is Ball State's second best hitting percentage rate that they've had all season. So again, it goes back to that theme of getting hot at the right time.
Both these teams coming into last night were extremely hot. Ball State rode that. Now let's take a shift and look over at the rest of the country and look at the college volleyball rankings top 24. You know, when looking at this, something that I realized following women's volleyball throughout the year is the ACC is just phenomenal. They have a lot of teams at the top. You see Pittsburgh, Louisville, and then you jump down in the 20s. Florida State, a team that I like to kind of a sneaky team that I like when it comes to tournament play.
You mentioned the ACC. I'm going to mention one of the newcomers to the ACC this season. Number 10, SMU. What an incredible season they have had, all the way up to the top 10 now. Get this. You look at number 1 and number 2, Pittsburgh and Nebraska. Each of those programs have 1 loss this season, and each of those programs have lost to SMU. So SMU putting together a really strong resume. That's why you've seen them climb periodically throughout the rankings this season. Now all the way up to number 10, and quickly just to localize it, Ball State did take on some of these top teams earlier in the season. The Cardinals played Penn State and Kentucky earlier in the season, and the Broncos also, too, did have some good early season competition as well.
Speaking of the MAC, let's take a look at the coaches in tonight's matchup. Obviously, you have Kelly Miller-Phillips in her 9th season as the head coach. Why has she been so good as the head Cardinal?
Well, she just knows volleyball. I mean, Kelly Miller-Phillips, a BSU assistant from 2010 to 2015, has been the head coach since 2016, has been very successful. But just look at the coaching matchup we have in general. Kelly Miller-Phillips on the Ball State side, Colleen Munson on the Broncos side. Munson, the winningest coach in Western Michigan program history. She took over in 2005 and has been there ever since. And last season, she led Western Michigan to a very successful season that featured a MAC regular season and tournament title.
She has been coaching volleyball for 20 seasons. That's a really, really long time. That's longer than I've been alive, and so I can't even imagine the amount of experience that she brings into her team. Speaking of that experience, they were highly looked at coming into the year, and they have finished this season very, very well as we near the MAC tournament. Both of these teams want to be hot at the right time. Let's start looking towards the MAC tournament, as a lot of other people are, as we take a look at the graphic here. Bowling Green #1, Central Michigan #2. Those two teams are locked in, and so is Ball State and Western Michigan.
Ball State and Western Michigan are locked in at their spots with the 3 and 4 seeds respectively. I want to highlight that 6th spot though, because as it stands today, Ohio is holding that number 6 spot. However, the Bobcats are playing #1 Bowling Green in their regular season finale. If Ohio loses that match to Bowling Green and Toledo defeats Kent State, Toledo would leapfrog Ohio and take that number 6 spot and then take on none other than the Ball State Cardinals in the 3 versus 6 matchup. So still some stuff left to be shaken out in the final hours of the MAC regular season.
It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out and what teams draw who, because we talked a lot about the teams in the MAC that have been really, really hot, but then there's been a lot of inconsistency throughout the year. So tournament play should be really exciting, and anyone can come out on top in the MAC.
Absolutely. It's a very competitive conference. 6 teams are in. The teams that got the bye, they're glad they got it, but if you're a 3 through 6 seed, yes, you have to play in that first round, but that also provides you with an opportunity to capitalize on a lot of the momentum you get late in the regular season without having to rest too much where you risk losing that momentum.
With all that being said, let's take a quick break, and we will be right back with keys to the match.
This volleyball pre-match show is brought to you by TableX. TableX proudly supports the students of Ball State Sports Link.
Welcome back to the studio. As we near closer to first serve, let's look at keys just like we just promised before the break. Ryan, what do you see as the keys to the game for the Broncos?
For the Broncos, you have to start fast, be efficient on the attack, and establish defense. But really, I want to highlight that first one, start fast, because in every set yesterday, all 3 of them, the Broncos just fell behind early, were never really able to get their feet under themselves, always seemed just a little bit off, not really in sync, a few errors on defense that really kind of made the Broncos seem a little uncomfortable from the start. And something I'm looking out for, despite falling behind a lot in these sets yesterday, the Broncos didn't really use timeouts. So I wonder if that trend continues into tonight, or if Colleen Munson is a bit more proactive taking timeouts if things go south for her squad in one of these sets.
Let's take a look at the squad who got the W last night. What are the keys to the matchup for the Ball State Cardinals?
Carry the momentum forward. I mean, it's really not that hard to explain. You look at what Ball State did yesterday. They dominated front court. They spread the love offensively. They played team volleyball, LJ, as we've talked about all throughout this pre-match report. So for Ball State, it's more of the same. It's stick to those fundamentals, and if you do that, you got a good chance of continuing what's a 10-game winning streak for Ball State. Boy, would the Cardinals love to make it 11 straight heading into postseason play.
How do you see this match, I guess, ending? Who do you see coming out on top, and for what reason?
Well, Ball State's writing history in a couple ways. The Cardinals have won 28 straight sets, a program record. In addition to that, they're also riding a 10-match win streak. I'm going to say the set streak snaps, but I'm going to say the win streak holds. Give me Ball State, but I think it goes 4 sets tonight.
That will do it for this TableX pregame show. Thank you to our producer, Evan Cummings, and our director, Daniel Sullivan. Up next, AJ Switek, Jordan Climbs, and Evan Stowell on the sideline for match number 2 between the Cardinals and the Broncos. For Ryan Stojus, I have been LJ Shreve. Thank you for joining us.